Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, we open a door to an ancient tale whispered through the ages. It is not a story of swords or shadows, but of light that endures across time and silence. Long ago, before temples and cities, there was only the rhythm of night and the promise of dawn. People looked to the horizon, waiting for a sign, a spark to guide their wandering hearts. The gods watched in silence, their wisdom hidden behind the veil of eternity and stars. Among them stood Athena, luminous in thought, guardian of clarity, keeper of balance. She did not speak with thunder or rage, but with the calm strength of a rising sun. From her hands came a gift, a flame unlike any other, tender yet unyielding. This was no fire of destruction, but of awakening, a dawn that burned within the soul. Its glow carried hope, shaping dreams, weaving courage into the fabric of mortal lives. The flame did not fade with time. It lingered, eternal, a whisper of divine promise. And so begins our journey, into the heart of the legend, where light meets destiny eternal. Part 1. The Whisper of Dawn. The night was long, stretching like an endless sea where silence ruled over restless hearts. Stars shimmered faintly, scattered pearls upon the dark canvas of eternity, distant yet familiar. The earth lay quiet, listening, as though holding its breath for something yet unseen. Mortals gathered by fires of wood, but their warmth faded quickly into the void. They yearned for more than fleeting sparks. They sought a promise that would endure. The horizon remained veiled, a curtain of shadows drawn tight against weary eyes. Children asked their elders, "When will the morning come, and what will it bring?" The answers were soft, filled with hope but hollow, echoing questions without end. And still, the night stretched onward, carrying both fear and wonder in equal measure. Whispers moved through the villages, rumors of light that never dies, hidden far away. Some said it was a star fallen to earth, buried deep within sacred soil. Others claimed it was a divine flame, waiting for worthy hearts to seek it. In every tale, the flame promised one truth, that dawn could be more than daybreak. It could be eternal, a light rising not only in the sky, but within. And so the people watched the edge of night, where shadows kiss the unseen. They spoke of a first light, not yet born, that would awaken all who dreamed. This was no ordinary dawn, but a whisper carried on winds older than time. The whisper told of change, of clarity that could pierce even the darkest veil. It was gentle, almost fragile, but it stirred hearts with a power beyond measure. For in every soul lived a quiet longing, a desire to be guided by light. No blade, no battle could quiet that longing, for it was woven into life. The whisper reached the ears of those who listened, the seekers of hidden truths. They closed their eyes, and, in silence, they felt warmth rising from within. The horizon began to shift, subtle at first, like ink dissolving in clear water. Night did not vanish. It softened, surrendering its grip with quiet grace. A pale glow stretched across the sky, a line of silver drawn by unseen hands. The earth stirred, and even the trees leaned gently toward the promise of light. Birds sang, not loudly, but with notes that trembled like prayers in the air. The whisper grew stronger, a chorus now, as if the dawn itself was speaking. It told the world that shadows are not forever, that silence too has an end. It reminded hearts that waiting is not in vain, for patience reveals hidden beauty. And when the first ray appeared, it was not fire, but clarity, soft and true. It did not blind or burn. It simply unveiled what had always been there. The faces of mortals glowed, not from heat, but from the quiet recognition of hope. This was the dawn that spoke, not in thunder, but in a language older than God's. A language of warmth, of promise, of the eternal flame, yet unseen, but deeply felt. Thus began the legend, whispered not from lips, but from the rising light itself. The world awoke, not just to a new day, but to the eternal dawn within. Part 2. Athena's Silent Watch. High above the mortal world, beyond clouds and winds, stood the silent watch of Athena. She did not dwell in thunder, nor in the clash of storms, but in calm, unbroken clarity. The goddess gazed upon the earth, her eyes tracing rivers, forests, and the restless sea. Her presence was not seen, yet it lingered like the hush before dawn's first breath. Mortals prayed for strength, for answers, for a light that would guide their uncertain steps. Athena listened not with impatience, but with the patience of one who knows time. Her wisdom was older than stone, yet gentler than the breeze that touches olive leaves. She held in her heart no weapon of rage, only the flame of insight eternal. This flame was not a torch of war, but a beacon for those who dared to seek. In silence, Athena watched humanity wander, stumble, and rise again with fragile hope. She saw their fears, but also their dreams that shimmered like hidden stars in the dark. Every gesture, every whisper, reached her as threads in a vast tapestry of life. Athena knew the world was not broken, only waiting to awaken to its own truth. She guarded that truth, keeping it safe, like a secret cradled in divine stillness. Her silent watch was not distance, but devotion, an unseen hand guiding mortal steps. When the night pressed heavily, it was her presence that softened its endless weight. When doubts grew loud, it was her whisper that reminded hearts of their quiet strength. The flame she held was steady, untouched by winds or shadows that passed through ages. It burned with wisdom, with vision, with the promise of light that need not destroy. Athena did not force her gift. She waited, knowing true seekers would come in time. For wisdom cannot be commanded. It must be discovered like dawn breaking within the soul. Her watch became legend, told by poets who never saw her, but felt her silent guard. They spoke of a goddess whose voice was softer than stars, yet stronger than stone. And though she never appeared in battle, her presence shaped victories of the spirit. She was there when an artist found courage to paint the unseen world of dreams. She was there when a philosopher dared to question the shadows of ignorance. She was there when a child held hope through the longest night of despair. All these moments wove together into her watch, a guardian unseen, yet always near. The eternal dawn flame rested in her keeping, awaiting those who could understand. It was not a prize for power, but a gift for those who listened in stillness. Athena's flame called not to warriors, but to seekers of harmony, wisdom, and truth. She waited, not with impatience, but with the certainty that dawn always follows night. Her watch became the balance between silence and speech, between shadow and light. Mortals did not see her, yet they felt her, in courage rising unbidden in their hearts. They felt her in the quiet strength to endure, in clarity that came without reason. Athena's watch was eternal, a reminder that wisdom is not loud, but steadfast. And so she remained, radiant in silence, guardian of a flame that would awaken worlds. The goddess did not need words, for her presence was a story whispered through time. She stood as a sentinel at the edge of eternity, waiting for the dawn to rise. Part 3. The flame's secret origin. Long before mortals knew its glow, the flame of Athena rested in silence, unseen by eyes. It was not born of fire, nor struck by lightning, nor drawn from the core of earth. It began as thought, pure and unshaken, a spark of wisdom carried through eternity's breath. The gods spoke of it rarely, for it was older than their temples, older than their names. Some said the flame was woven when the first dawn broke over the silent void. Others whispered it was a memory left behind by creation itself, a trace of divine intent. Athena discovered it not by conquest, but by listening, by stillness deeper than the sea. In her solitude, she heard a soundless song, the pulse of truth rising from beyond time. She followed it through the quiet places of the cosmos, where no shadow dared to linger. There, in a space between moments, she found the flame resting, small yet infinite in power. It did not roar, it did not consume. It glowed like a thought waiting to be spoken. Athena reached for it, not with hands, but with her mind, her heart, her unshaken clarity. The flame answered, not with fire, but with vision, showing worlds rising and falling in cycles. It revealed to her that dawn was not simply morning, but a promise written in existence. Athena understood then that the flame was not hers, not owned, not bound by any will. It was a gift to all, a reminder that light is not given, but awakened within. She carried it gently, not in vessels of gold, but in the silence of her spirit. The gods marveled, for though they too were powerful, none had heard the flame's true voice. Athena spoke little of it, for words could not capture what the flame truly was. Instead, she let it live in her presence, guiding her choices, shaping her wisdom. When she looked upon mortals, she saw the flame already flickering within their fragile hearts. She knew her task was not to guard it forever, but to help them recognize its glow. For the flame could not be stolen, nor extinguished, only forgotten when doubt grew strong. It was not a weapon, though some wished it were, for its fire did not destroy. It was a mirror, showing each soul the truth of who they could become at dawn. The origin of the flame was mystery, but its purpose was clear as the morning sky. It was eternity's promise that darkness would never reign unbroken, that light would always return. Athena became its guardian, not through command, but through harmony, for the flame trusted her. In return, she vowed to carry it, unseen yet eternal, until mortals were ready to receive it. Legends began to grow, carried by poets who spoke of a light that never dies. They did not know its source, but they felt its echo in their dreams and questions. Some dreamed of a fire on the mountain, others of a star buried in the sea. All were fragments of the same truth, that the flame's origin was older than story. Athena smiled upon these tales, for though imperfect, they guided hearts closer to wisdom. She did not correct them, for truth revealed itself in time, as dawn revealed day. And so the secret origin remained hidden, not by chains, but by silence and reverence. The flame waited, eternal, not to be found by force, but to be welcomed by seekers. Its glow lingered in the world unseen, whispering through winds, shimmering in the quiet sky. It called softly, patiently, promising that whoever sought with pure heart would one day know. Thus the flame endured, its origin a mystery, its purpose eternal, its guardian silent but watchful. Part 4. The gift to humanity. Athena did not keep the flame hidden, though its power was enough to shine through eternity. She knew that wisdom locked away serves no one, for light unshared becomes shadow in silence. The goddess stood at the threshold of choice, holding eternity's spark in her steady gaze. She thought not of power, nor of dominion, but of the mortal hearts waiting below. They were fragile, yet within their fragility lived the hunger to grow, to learn, to create. Athena believed the flame belonged not to the divine alone, but to all who dared dream. So she bent her thoughts toward the earth, where mortals waited in longing for guidance. She whispered the flame into the winds, letting its warmth scatter across the sleeping world. The gift did not fall like fire from the heavens, but like dawn unfolding with quiet grace. It touched a shepherd gazing at the stars, stirring questions larger than the sky above. It touched a mother singing to her child, weaving hope into a lullaby carried by night. It touched an artisan shaping clay, who found beauty waiting in the silence of his hands. It touched a traveler on a lonely road, who felt courage rise without reason to continue. The flame spread, not in blinding fire, but in countless sparks hidden within mortal lives. It became thought, imagination, compassion, a flame invisible yet present in every gentle act. Athena did not appear to claim credit, for the gift was not hers, but theirs to keep. She watched as mortals discovered its glow slowly, like eyes adjusting to the light of dawn. Some felt it as inspiration, a sudden clarity that painted answers upon their wandering minds. Others felt it as patience, the strength to wait for seasons to turn without losing hope. Still others felt it as courage, the quiet voice urging them to rise when despair pressed. The eternal dawn flame was no single torch, but a constellation of sparks across the earth. Each person carried it differently, yet together they formed a light that could not fade. Athena knew this was the gift, not one flame in one place, but countless within all. It was a gift that asked nothing but offered everything, for it awakened what was already there. Mortals began to share it without knowing, passing wisdom in stories, in music, in kindness. A poet sang of horizons and hearts stirred, his words kindling fire in those who listened. A healer offered comfort not only in herbs, but in the faith that light always returns. A builder raised a temple not for power, but as a house of learning and reflection. The gift of the flame was not visible, yet it transformed the world one soul at a time. Darkness still came, as it always would. But now dawn followed more swiftly, more surely. Athena smiled in silence, for the flame had found its home, not in her keeping, but in theirs. Her gift had become a seed of eternity, planted in countless hearts, watered by dreams. The gods watched with wonder, for no conquest had ever spread so far without force or fear. What Athena gave was not command, but remembrance, a call to recall the light within. Mortals who felt the flame grew gentler, stronger, wiser, shaping the world with unseen fire. Generations carried it forward, each dawn a reminder of the promise gifted by the goddess. The eternal dawn flame lived not in temples or relics, but in the everyday lives of mortals. Thus, humanity was changed forever, not by thunder, not by war, but by a flame of wisdom. And Athena, from her silent watch, knew the gift was eternal, because it was no longer hers. Part 5. The Silent Keepers. The eternal dawn flame lived quietly within the hearts of mortals, yet its glow never dimmed. Generations rose and passed, each carrying sparks of wisdom without always knowing their source. The flame did not seek temples of marble or shrines of gold, but lived in simple acts. A farmer saving seeds for tomorrow carried it as surely as a scholar studying ancient words. The flame spoke not in thunder, but in whispers, in choices that built lives brick by brick. Some mortals felt its presence in sudden clarity, as if the air itself hummed with meaning. Others felt it only in hindsight, looking back on lives shaped by unseen light guiding them. Athena watched, silent, never claiming. For the flame's strength was its quiet belonging to all. There were those called keepers, not priests, not rulers, but humble souls who guarded memory. They told stories by firelight of a goddess who gifted dawn to mortals in their need. They wove myths not as law, but as songs, gentle reminders of the flame's enduring grace. Each keeper differed, a grandmother, a wanderer, a child who asked too many questions. The flame chose them not by lineage, but by heart, by the openness to wonder and truth. They never held torches, yet their words lit brighter fires than any temple could contain. One spoke of kindness as strength, another of patience as power, another of wisdom as freedom. Thus the flame endured, not in stone records, but in living hearts, passing light hand to hand. At times, the world grew restless, chasing shadows of pride, forgetting the dawn within them. Yet always, the keepers remained, voices soft but steady, guiding like stars on cloudy nights. Their presence reminded humanity that eternity does not roar. It glows, waiting to be noticed. The gods marveled, for no divine decree had ever held such reach without chains or fear. What Athena began had become something greater, a quiet current flowing beneath mortal history. The eternal dawn flame was not worship, but wisdom disguised as common courage. It lived in the farmer who trusted spring, the teacher who sparked thought, the healer who listened. It lived in the artist painting not to be remembered, but to reveal beauty in the ordinary. And so the world turned, century upon century, while the flame wove unseen patterns of light. It guided civilizations through storms, not by saving them, but by awakening their own strength. A city rebuilt after ruin because its people remembered how to dream beyond the rubble. A people survived hardship because one keeper's story reminded them that dawn always follows night. The flame did not prevent suffering, but it made hope stronger than despair could ever be. Athena saw this and understood. Her gift was not a fire to be held, but a mirror. In its glow, mortals saw themselves, not as fragile beings, but as carriers of eternity. Every dawn was proof. The flame remained, not in the heavens, but in their own breath. Thus the keepers, unnamed, unsung, became the silent guardians of a promise unbroken. They lived and died quietly, yet through them the flame leapt across generations uncounted. The eternal dawn flame endured because it never demanded. It only awakened what was waiting. And humanity, though often forgetting, always found its way back to the light within. For once the flame touches a soul, it never truly leaves, only waits for awakening again. This was Athena's wisdom, eternity given not to gods, but entrusted to mortals who would keep it. Part 6. The veil of forgetting time, patient and endless, wove its patterns across the world as generations rose and fell. The eternal dawn flame endured, yet many mortals forgot where its warmth first began. The keepers still whispered stories by firelight, but fewer listened with open hearts. Temples of stone grew tall, cities gleamed with power, and shadows of pride stretched wide. Some rulers claimed the flame as their own, weaving it into banners and crowns of gold. They said, "We are the chosen, the bearers of the eternal fire, and all must follow us." But the flame was never theirs to own, for wisdom cannot be bound by command. It was a quiet light, not a weapon, not a chain, but rulers feared its freedom. And so, in courts and markets, the true meaning dimmed, hidden behind symbols and rituals. Yet in humble homes, the flame still flickered in laughter, kindness, and dreams unspoken. A child's question, a mother's patience, a teacher's guidance. Each carried sparks unnoticed. The veil of forgetting did not extinguish the flame, but it clouded mortal eyes. They searched the heavens for miracles, not knowing the dawn burned already in their breath. Athena saw this with calm eyes, for she knew eternity cannot be erased, only obscured. The keepers grieved, but did not despair, for even in silence, the flame found ways to live. One told stories through weaving, stitching dawn into cloth that warmed those in need. Another planted gardens, teaching patience and renewal without speaking the goddess's name. Another sang lullabies that carried hope across generations, though no one remembered their origin. The keepers became shadows themselves, unnoticed, yet carrying eternity in their quiet steps. Some mortals began to doubt the flame ever existed, calling it myth or dream. But doubt did not weaken it, for truth requires no belief to remain eternal. Athena allowed mortals to wander in forgetting, for rediscovery is a deeper form of knowing. Like dawn after night, the flame shines brightest when long unseen, returning with sudden clarity. The gods debated whether the gift had failed, yet Athena answered only with silence. She trusted the mortal heart, fragile yet strong, to remember when the hour was right. Even in forgetting, the flame endured, waiting for breath to awaken it again. A girl staring at the horizon felt wonder stir, though she had never heard the tales. A boy listening to the river's murmur felt peace he could not explain. An elder, sitting alone, remembered a kindness from childhood and carried it into twilight. These were the unnoticed moments where the eternal flame whispered, unseen but unbroken. The veil of forgetting was not an end, but a season, like winter before spring. Athena knew wisdom must sometimes be lost, so it can be cherished and found again. The keepers, though weary, never ceased, their voices soft as wind through forgotten ruins. They planted seeds in stories, art, and small acts, knowing not all would grow. But eternity requires no haste. The flame waits as patiently as dawn behind the night. Thus, humanity walked between memory and forgetting, carrying the flame without always knowing. And those shadows lengthened, though pride and doubt spread wide, the dawn was not gone. It waited in silence, certain as the sun, ready to rise again when hearts awakened. This was the veil of forgetting, not a loss, but a hidden path back to light. Part 7. The Awakening of the Forgotten Flame. The veil of forgetting lingered long, casting shadows over memory. Yet the flame never ceased. It lived in silence, waiting, patient as dawn itself beyond the darkest of nights. But time brings turning, and the forgotten always stirs when hearts are ready once more. It began quietly, with questions whispered by dreamers who felt the world's silence too heavy. They asked, is there more than power, more than pride, more than endless striving? Such questions are the kindling of awakening, sparks striking against the stone of doubt. The eternal flame stirred, sensing mortals reaching beyond shadows toward forgotten light. In a village by the sea, a girl sketched horizons that seemed to glow with meaning. She had never heard of Athena, yet her drawings carried dawn across waves of longing. In a distant mountain town, a boy carved patterns into wood, shapes echoing eternal circles. He felt guided by hands unseen, as if memory moved through him in silence. Elsewhere, an elder gathered children and spoke of kindness as if it were sacred fire. None knew the old tales, yet each moment carried the pulse of the forgotten flame. Athena, watching, did not intervene, for the awakening belonged to mortals, not to gods. The keepers felt it first, their hearts lifting as if the air itself was lighter. They spoke to one another across distances, sensing dawn breaking beneath the veil. "Do you feel it?" they asked in letters, songs, and dreams shared under starry sky. The answer was always yes, though none could explain, only smile, silent recognition. The awakening spread slowly, not in crowds, not in conquest, but in single lives touched. A healer paused before tending wounds, realizing that comfort itself was a sacred act. A poet found words flowing like rivers, carrying wisdom he had not studied or heard. A mother, once weary, sang a song to her child and wept for reasons unknown. The forgotten flame was remembering itself through mortal lives, weaving light into the ordinary. Shadows did not vanish, but they grew thinner, unable to bind those who carried light. The awakening was not loud, but it was steady, the first rays before sunrise. Athena smiled from her watch, her silence filled with pride and quiet certainty. The gods murmured among themselves, amazed that mortals could find what was once lost. The eternal dawn flame had returned not by miracle, but by human longing for truth. It was proof that wisdom cannot be buried, for the heart remembers even when the mind forgets. The awakening gathered strength as stories returned, not word for word, but in essence. A tale told of a light within all, of dawn promised no matter the night. Another tale spoke of a goddess unnamed who trusted mortals more than gods ever had. The children who listened felt fire stir, carrying it forward without realizing its ancient roots. Thus, the forgotten flame rose again, not as a relic, but as living breath. The awakening of the flame was not a return to the past, but a new beginning. For mortals shaped it anew, turning wisdom into acts fitting their own time and need. Athena knew this was as it should be, for eternity does not repeat, it renews. The eternal dawn flame now lived again in laughter, art, kindness, courage, and wonder. The veil of forgetting had thinned, and dawn was rising once more across the world. What was once hidden had been found again, not by gods, but by mortal hearts awakening. The awakening spread gently, yet the world was not free of storms that tested the flame. For every spark of hope, shadows rose, reminding mortals that light is not absence of dark. The eternal dawn flame was never meant to erase struggle, but to guide through it. So when storms came, the awakening was tested in the hearts of those who carried it. In a crowded city, voices clashed with anger, each convinced their truth was the only fire. Pride grew loud, and the flame seemed faint beneath the roar of division and fear. Yet even there, one child shared bread with another, and the unseen spark burned bright. Kindness softened rage. Though the act seemed small, it echoed louder than the arguments. The flame does not shout. It lingers, steady, waiting for eyes willing to see. Elsewhere, a village faced a long winter, and despair threatened to smother their will. But they remembered stories told by elders of dawn rising beyond the longest night. They chose to share food, warmth, and faith. And so the flame kept them alive. In distant mountains, a storm of snow trapped travelers on a lonely pass. Fear spread quickly, but one voice began to sing, and others joined, warmth returning. The flame glowed in their harmony, carrying them through darkness until morning came. Storms came in many forms, some born of nature, others from hearts burdened with pride. Yet each time, the eternal dawn flame revealed itself through simple acts of courage. Athena watched and smiled, knowing the flame was strongest when mortals discovered its strength. The gods again marveled, for no decree could sustain hope as love and wisdom did. The awakening was no fragile flicker, but a dawn rising steadily within storms of time. Artists painted skies brighter, poets sang of courage, and builders raised homes filled with peace. The flame inspired not monuments, but lives woven with kindness, courage, and quiet faith. Still, storms would always return, for such is the rhythm of mortal existence. But mortals now carried a memory, faint yet unyielding, that dawn always followed night. This remembrance became their shield, not of steel, but of spirit unbroken by shadow. A mother comforted her child in sickness, whispering that dawn was already on its way. A teacher encouraged a weary student, reminding them that every failure is but night before light. A traveler shared a story of courage by firelight, kindling sparks in those who listened. The eternal dawn flame was not bound to temples or leaders, but alive in countless lives. It grew not by conquest, but by compassion, not by fear, but by trust. The storm did not silence it. Instead, it revealed where the flame burned strongest. Athena's wisdom had always been this: light is not absence of darkness, but strength within it. And so the world learned again, carrying the flame through storm after storm, dawn after dawn. The awakening endured, not fragile but resilient, like the sun hidden yet certain behind clouds. Mortals, once forgetful, now remembered more swiftly, holding on to hope with steady hands. For every storm was proof that the flame was eternal, shining brightest in the darkest hour. And thus the eternal dawn flame became not only a gift, but a companion through storms. The awakening spread gently, yet the world was not free of storms that tested the flame. For every spark of hope, shadows rose, reminding mortals that light is not absence of dark. The eternal dawn flame was never meant to erase struggle, but to guide through it. So when storms came, the awakening was tested in the hearts of those who carried it. In a crowded city, voices clashed with anger, each convinced their truth was the only fire. Pride grew loud, and the flame seemed faint beneath the roar of division and fear. Yet even there, one child shared bread with another, and the unseen spark burned bright. Kindness softened rage. Though the act seemed small, it echoed louder than the arguments. The flame does not shout. It lingers, steady, waiting for eyes willing to see. Elsewhere, a village faced a long winter, and despair threatened to smother their will. But they remembered stories told by elders of dawn, rising beyond the longest night. They chose to share food, warmth, and faith, and so the flame kept them alive. In distant mountains, a storm of snow trapped travelers on a lonely pass. Fear spread quickly, but one voice began to sing, and others joined, warmth returning. The flame glowed in their harmony, carrying them through darkness until morning came. Storms came in many forms, some born of nature, others from hearts burdened with pride. Yet each time, the eternal dawn flame revealed itself through simple acts of courage. Athena watched and smiled, knowing the flame was strongest when mortals discovered its strength. The gods again marveled, for no decree could sustain hope as love and wisdom did. The awakening was no fragile flicker, but a dawn rising steadily within storms of time. Artists painted skies brighter, poets sang of courage, and builders raised homes filled with peace. The flame inspired not monuments, but lives woven with kindness, courage, and quiet faith. Still, storms would always return, for such is the rhythm of mortal existence. But mortals now carried a memory, faint yet unyielding, that dawn always followed night. This remembrance became their shield, not of steel, but of spirit unbroken by shadow. A mother comforted her child in sickness, whispering that dawn was already on its way. A teacher encouraged a weary student, reminding them that every failure is but night before light. A traveler shared a story of courage by firelight, kindling sparks in those who listened. The eternal dawn flame was not bound to temples or leaders, but alive in countless lives. It grew not by conquest, but by compassion, not by fear, but by trust. The storm did not silence it. Instead, it revealed where the flame burned strongest. Athena's wisdom had always been this: light is not absence of darkness, but strength within it. And so the world learned again, carrying the flame through storm after storm, dawn after dawn. The awakening endured, not fragile, but resilient, like the sun hidden yet certain behind clouds. Mortals, once forgetful, now remembered more swiftly, holding on to hope with steady hands. For every storm was proof that the flame was eternal, shining brightest in the darkest hour. And thus the eternal dawn flame became not only a gift, but a companion through storms. The eternal dawn flame glowed brighter with each passing generation, woven into lives both grand and simple. But with its growth came the need for guardians, not of temples, but of spirit. For the flame could never be stolen, yet it could fade if hearts grew careless. Athena knew this truth well, and so she whispered to chosen souls across the world. They were not warriors nor kings, but quiet ones, unseen, whose strength lay in gentleness. Weaver in the desert sang as she worked, her threads glowing with patterns of dawn. A healer in the forest spoke softly, teaching children that kindness was stronger than pride. A sailor carried the flame across oceans, guiding lost crews home by starlight and song. None claimed titles, none sought glory, for the flame thrived most in humility's hands. These became the guardians of the quiet flame, living proof that light is not loud. They did not guard by force, but by remembrance, by choosing love when fear was easier. Their lives were not perfect, yet their choices rippled outward, keeping the flame alive. In times of despair, they reminded others that dawn is never gone, only hidden. In moments of conflict, they listened when anger demanded shouting, softening the edge of division. They were anchors, steady and calm, reminding mortals that light was already within them. Some doubted, asking why the gods did not send great signs or thunderous commands. But the guardians knew. The eternal dawn flame was no command, but an invitation. It could not be forced, only received, carried, and passed on through willing hearts. So they kept their vigil, not in temples of stone, but in the rhythm of daily life. A baker kneaded dough at sunrise, whispering blessings into bread for the hungry. A teacher recited poems of dawn, not from books, but from the fire within her. A shepherd watched the hills at night, singing quietly to stars, as if to old friends. Each act was a form of guardianship, no less powerful than swords or shields. The guardians never met in great councils, yet they were bound across distance and time. They recognized one another, not by signs, but by the quiet glow in their eyes. A nod, a smile, a word of kindness. These were the ways they knew. The eternal flame spread steadily through them, woven into countless ordinary moments. Athena watched with pride, for this was the destiny she had always hoped for. Not devotion to herself, but devotion to light, carried freely by human choice. The gods looked on in silence, realizing wisdom had found a new home among mortals. The guardians were not perfect, and sometimes they faltered, forgetting the flame they held. But the circle of memory lifted them, reminding each guardian that they were never alone. Even in solitude, the flame remained, steady, waiting for their return with open warmth. Thus the guardianship endured, not by law or fear, but by love renewed each day. The eternal dawn flame no longer belonged to gods, nor to myths, nor to forgotten tales. It belonged to mortals who chose to guard it quietly, carrying dawn into every storm. And so the guardians kept watch, not with swords, but with songs, kindness, and courage. The eternal dawn flame lived through them, eternal not by decree but by choice unbroken. The story of the eternal dawn flame was never one of endings, but of continuance. For dawn itself does not end. It rises, sets, and rises, again, eternal in its promise. Athena knew this truth from the beginning, yet she chose to let mortals discover it. Now the flame lived not in temples or myths, but in countless lives shaped by love. The guardians kept watch, the circles shared stories, and the storms tested, yet never destroyed. Everywhere the flame glowed, not always seen, but always felt, like warmth before sunrise. A poet once wrote that dawn was not a sky, but a song sung within the heart. A farmer said it was not a season, but a choice to plant even in hardship. A child whispered it was a promise that no night could last forever. And in these voices, the truth of the eternal flame was spoken clearly. It was not power to be held, but light to be shared, again and again. Athena smiled, for the mortals had surpassed what even gods could imagine. The eternal flame was no longer hers to guard, nor theirs to fear losing. It belonged to all, woven into laughter, tears, silence, and song. And so the story became less of a tale and more of a way of being. For every life touched by kindness, every word spoken with truth, every act carried in courage. Each of these became a dawn. Each of these became the flame renewed. The gods, from their high halls, finally understood what Athena had known. That eternity is not a gift to be granted, but a memory to be kept alive. And mortals, fragile yet enduring, had proven they could carry eternity with grace. The eternal dawn flame was not just fire, but the very rhythm of hope itself. It was the courage to rise after falling, the faith to sing in the storm. It was the strength to forgive, the wisdom to listen, the joy to love. And as long as mortals remembered these, dawn would never fade. A final circle was told beneath the stars, where elders and children gathered together. They did not speak of gods or myths, but of light they had seen in their lives. A stranger's kindness, a friend's loyalty, a teacher's patience, a healer's care. Each memory was placed into the circle, and the flame rose higher with every word. In the silence that followed, the world seemed brighter, as if dawn had already come. Athena's voice, gentle as wind, whispered across the earth, "The flame is yours now." And mortals, hearing without hearing, carried the truth into their days. The eternal dawn flame no longer waited to be found, for it was never lost again. It lived in the simplest of moments, unseen yet eternal, fragile yet unbreakable. Dawn had become more than sunrise. It had become the way of living itself. And so the story closes, not with an ending, but with a beginning repeated forever. For every time a child laughs, a song is sung, or kindness is given, dawn rises. Every time truth is spoken, every time love is chosen, the flame awakens once more. The eternal dawn flame shines not in distant heavens, but here, in each human heart. And as long as hearts beat, dawn will return, eternal, unbroken, forever, rising.